welcome to the very first ThingRex Audio Experience deep dive.
I'm excited to be here.
We're so glad to have you with us as we kind of kick off this whole journey of knowledge exploration.
Yeah.
You know how it goes?
Yeah, for
You
sure.
bring the interesting sources, and we, your trusted guides, will transform them into clear and insightful takeaways.
Exactly. Think of us as your personal research assistants,
Yeah.
cutting through the noise and highlighting what truly matters.
Yeah, exactly. And for this inaugural deep dive, we're tackling a topic that's really rapidly changing the business landscape.
Yeah.
The Internet of Things.
Yeah, IoT.
Specifically how it's represented in the AWS Cloud. Now we understand that you might not be an engineer listening to this.
Of course.
And that's totally okay.
Absolutely.
We're going to steer clear of all that jargon, and we'll focus on the practical insights that you need to grasp this game-changing technology.
That's right. We're aiming for that aha moment where it all clicks into place.
Exactly. And you know what makes this even more exciting? Is that our primary source today is an article from ThingRex, penned by none other than Luca Pelinowski, a true AWS IoT expert.
Oh, wow.
So this isn't just theoretical mumbo-jumbo. This is grounded in real-world experience, which we all know is where the real learning happens.
It's always more valuable to learn from someone who's been in the trenches. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's set the stage here.
Okay.
Before we dive headfirst into this AWS universe, can you just give us a quick refresher on what the Internet of Things actually is? I mean, we hear this term thrown around all the time.
Yeah.
But what does it really mean for businesses like ours?
You're absolutely right. Starting with a clear understanding is key. So the Internet of Things, or IoT for short, is essentially a network of physical objects, things that are embedded with sensors, software, and other technologies, and this allows them to connect and exchange data with other devices and systems over the Internet.
So it's not just our smartphones and laptops anymore. It's like everyday objects are becoming smart and interconnected.
Precisely think about a factory setting, for example. Imagine sensors on machinery that can monitor performance, detect potential issues before they become major problems, and even automatically adjust settings for optimal efficiency. That's the power of IoT in action.
Okay, that makes sense. So how does AWS Amazon's cloud computing platform fit into this picture? Where does AWS IoT Core come in?
Think of AWS IoT Core as the brain behind all of these interconnected devices.
Okay.
It's a platform that enables businesses to connect, manage, and analyze data from their IoT devices at scale.
So it's like a central command center for all things IoT within the AWS ecosystem.
You got it. But here's where it gets really interesting. We have all these physical things out in the real world, sensors, machines, vehicles. How do we represent them digitally in the cloud?
That's a great question. It's like we need to create digital twins of these physical objects.
You're exactly right. And that's where the concept of an IoT thing comes into play within AWS. It's essentially a digital representation of a physical device residing in the cloud. It's how AWS bridges the gap between the physical and digital worlds.
Okay, so it's like creating a digital passport for each of our devices, giving them a unique identity in the cloud.
Precisely. And that digital passport contains all the essential information about the device, its serial number, its capabilities, the type of data it collects, everything AWS needs to know to manage and interact with it.
So let's take that temperature sensor in a factory as an example.
Great.
We could create an IoT thing for that sensor.
Right.
And it would hold all the relevant information about it, like its calibration settings and measurement range.
Exactly. But imagine you have hundreds, even thousands of these sensors across your factory. How do you keep track of them all? That's where the IoT Thing Registry comes in.
Okay, so the IoT Thing Registry is like a massive database for all of our IoT things, right?
It's the central repository where AWS stores and organizes all the information about your connected devices. Think of it as a highly sophisticated inventory management system for your IoT ecosystem.
So it's not just a random jumble of digital twins. It's a structured system that allows us to manage these devices efficiently.
Exactly. And here's where metadata comes into play. Metadata is essentially data about data. It provides context and meaning to the raw data coming from your devices.
Metadata. I've heard that term before, but can you give us a practical example of how it's used in the context of IoT?
Absolutely. Let's go back to our temperature sensor example. The raw data it sends might be a simple temperature reading, say 72 degrees Fahrenheit, but with metadata, we can add valuable context to that reading. We can specify the location of the sensor, the time the reading was taken, the units of measurement, and even the accuracy range of the sensor.
Ah, so metadata is like adding labels to the data points,
Yes,
making them much more meaningful and useful. It's like the difference between having a box full of random photos and a well-organized photo album with captions and dates.
that's a perfect analogy. Metadata transforms raw data into actionable insights, allowing you to make informed decisions.
Okay, this is starting to make a lot of sense. So we have our individual IoT things representing our devices in the cloud, all neatly organized in the IoT thing registry with their corresponding metadata.
Mhm.
But is there a way to group these devices together based on shared characteristics or functionalities?
That's a great question, and it leads us to the concept of thing types and thing groups, which we'll delve into after a quick break.
Sounds good.
So thing types and thing groups.
Okay.
These are ways that you can group your IoT things into logical collections
Okay.
based on shared characteristics or purposes.
Okay. So like categories or folders.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So
Yeah.
for example, let's say a manufacturing plant has multiple production lines, each equipped with various sensors, monitoring temperature, pressure, vibration, and so on.
Uh-huh.
They could create a thing group for each production line,
Okay.
grouping all the sensors associated with that specific line.
Gotcha. And how would they use those thing groups, like in a real-world scenario?
Imagine if they need to perform maintenance on one particular production line.
Okay.
Using thing groups, they can easily target all the sensors associated with that line and send a command to disable them
Okay.
during the maintenance period. This ensures that, they don't receive erroneous readings,
Okay.
and then they can resume normal operation once maintenance is complete.
So it streamlines operations and prevents, any unnecessary complications.
Exactly. It's all about leveraging the power of organization to manage complexity and improve efficiency.
Right. I see. That makes sense. Now you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We're continuing our exploration of representing physical devices in the AWS Cloud.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how AWS has created this whole system to manage all the complexities of the Internet of Things.
It really is a game changer, especially for businesses looking to leverage the power of IoT.
We've already covered how AWS IoT Core acts as that central brain and how digital twins, or IoT things, as they're called in AWS, connect the real-world devices to the cloud.
Right.
And of course, we can't forget about the IoT Thing Registry, that super organized database that keeps all those digital twins in check, along with their valuable metadata.
Absolutely. And there's one crucial aspect we touched upon earlier that I'd love to delve into further,
Okay.
and that's security.
Yeah.
With all these devices connecting and sharing data, security has to be a top priority.
Of course, wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And this is where Lucas's real-world expertise shines through in his article.
Okay.
He dives deep into the nuts and bolts of how AWS ensures secure communication between devices in the cloud.
So let's talk security. Break it down for us.
Okay.
How does AWS ensure that only authorized devices are connecting
Okay.
and that the data being transmitted is protected?
Well, just like we need a passport to travel internationally, each IoT thing needs a digital certificate to connect securely to AWS. It's not a physical document, of course, but it's a digital file that verifies the identity of the device.
So it's like a digital driver's license for our IoT things.
That's a great analogy. Each certificate is unique to the device and is based on complex cryptography, ensuring it's incredibly difficult to forge.
Cryptography, that sounds pretty intense.
It is, but in a good way. Think
Wow.
of it as a super secure way to prove your identity. Each IoT thing gets this unique certificate, and it also has a private key that remains secret and stored on the device itself.
So it's like a two-factor authentication system for our sensors.
Precisely when an IoT thing wants to connect to AWS, it presents its certificate. AWS then checks this certificate against its records. If everything matches up, the connection is established.
But what prevents someone from creating a fake certificate and pretending to be a legitimate device?
That's where the power of cryptography comes in again.
Right.
These certificates are incredibly difficult to forge. They're based on sophisticated mathematical algorithms and linked back to a chain of trust, ultimately rooted in a trusted authority. It's a robust system designed to prevent any unauthorized access.
Okay, so it's not just about having a certificate.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
about having a certificate that's part of a secure and verifiable system.
Right.
That makes sense.
Exactly. And AWS provides all the tools and infrastructure needed to manage these certificates. Effectively, they even have this feature called One-click certificate creation for quick setup.
One-click certificate creation. That sounds tempting for a busy business owner like myself,
Yeah.
who's trying to get things up and running quickly.
Sure.
But is that really the best approach from a security standpoint?
Well, it's certainly convenient for testing and getting started,
Yeah.
but Lucas cautions against using it for real-world deployments.
Okay.
He compares it to using a master key to open every door in your house. It might be convenient, but it's a major security risk.
I see your point.
Yeah.
If you use the same certificate for multiple devices and one gets compromised, they all become vulnerable.
Precisely the best practice, as Lucas emphasizes, is to generate a unique certificate for each and every IoT thing.
Okay.
It might require a bit more effort up front, but it pays off significantly in terms of security and peace of mind.
That's a trade-off any smart business owner would gladly make security as paramount,
Absolutely.
especially when we're dealing with sensitive data.
And there's another crucial aspect of security that Lucas highlights.
Okay.
Certificate rotation.
Certificate rotation, what's that all about?
It's similar to the concept of changing your passwords regularly, even with strong passwords. It's good practice to change them periodically to minimize the risk of compromise.
Okay.
The same applies to certificates by rotating them regularly.
Okay.
You're adding another layer of protection to your IoT infrastructure.
So it's like moving the goalposts for any potential attackers,
Exactly.
making it much harder for them to gain a foothold.
It's all about staying one step ahead and proactively mitigating security risks.
This is really insightful stuff. It's clear that security is deeply embedded in the fabric of AWS IoT.
Absolutely, and for businesses, that's a huge selling point.
Yeah.
Knowing that their IoT data is handled with the utmost care and security allows them to focus on leveraging the power of IoT to achieve their business goals.
Now, I know we're talking about AWS specifically.
Right.
Are these concepts applicable to other IoT platforms as well, or is this unique to AWS?
While the specific implementations might vary, the core principles of digital twins, secure communication, and certificate management are fundamental to any robust IoT platform. These are industry best practices that apply across the board.
So regardless of which platform a business chooses, these security considerations are paramount.
Precisely. It's all about establishing a secure and reliable foundation for your entire IoT ecosystem.
That makes sense. So we've talked about individual devices represented as IoT things, the importance of security and certificates. But how does AWS help us manage and organize large numbers of these devices? Earlier, we briefly mentioned thing groups.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
In fact, of course, think of thing groups as a way to organize your IoT things into logical collections based on shared characteristics or purposes.
Okay, so it's like creating categories or folders for our devices.
That's a good way to think about it. For example, let's say a manufacturing plant has multiple production lines, each equipped with various sensors monitoring temperature, pressure, vibration, and so on. They could create a thing group for each production line, grouping all the sensors associated with that specific line.
That sounds really useful.
Yeah.
How would a business actually utilize these thing groups in a practical sense?
Imagine they need to perform maintenance on one particular production line. Using thing groups, they can easily target all the sensors associated with that line and send a command to disable them during the maintenance period. This ensures they don't receive erroneous readings and can resume normal operation once maintenance is complete.
That makes a lot of sense. It streamlines operations and prevents unnecessary complications.
Exactly. It's all about leveraging the power of organization to manage complexity and improve efficiency.
This has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of AWS IoT.
Yeah, it has.
We've explored how physical devices are represented in the cloud, the crucial role of security, and the organizational capabilities of thing groups. But the journey isn't over yet, is it? It's amazing to think how these technologies are transforming businesses and industries around the world, and we're just at the beginning of this transformative journey.
The possibilities are truly endless, and it's exciting to see what the future holds for the Internet of Things.
To any business leader listening, the takeaway is clear. Don't underestimate the power of IoT. It might just be the key to unlocking new levels of efficiency, innovation, and growth for your organization.
And if you're feeling inspired to dive deeper, we highly recommend exploring the vast resources available online and checking out Lucas Malinowski's insightful articles on ThingRex. His expertise in this field is invaluable.
He's a true thought leader, and his real-world experience shines through in his writing.
And remember, we're always here to guide you through the complexities of technology. If you have any sources you'd like us to deep dive into, don't hesitate to send them our way. We're always eager to explore new and fascinating topics.
We're on this journey of knowledge discovery together. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep innovating.
In our next segment, we'll tackle the question of how these IoT things actually connect to AWS and start sending data. We'll uncover the magic behind the communication protocol that makes it all happen.
I'm already intrigued. This is where the real action begins.
Stay tuned.